They're beautiful people, soul healers and all lovers of the tarot and all things healing and all of that. So here we have my first kind of podcast format, which is just me making it up and having a long conversation with a great fellow tarot healer, a friend of mine called Eve Ford. And I've been thinking about doing this for a long time. I've been thinking about having a long conversation and doing a collaboration with other people. And this is a great friend of mine who we met several years ago, and we've been doing little exchanges and sharing stories ever since. And she's just a very beautiful soul and a beautiful friend, and I really would love to put her on my platform and share some of her stories too. And you'll see some of the information of how to contact her at the end or in the description of this video, so have a look for that if you're interested to do anything with her in the future. Let me know what you think. Let me know, as always, what you think, what you feel and what your perspective is about this sharing. I'm open to criticism, I'm open to ideas, I'm open to new ways and new things that we can talk about as well. This is the first maybe of many. I get a lot from hearing other podcasts of other people, and so I thought I'd start this format and start sharing a little bit on my own. And this is a great friend, and this is somebody who I always wanted to hear and listen and share with in this way. So tell me what you think, and I hope you enjoy it. So hello everyone, and whoever's interested in seeing this, I decided that it might be interesting in doing a little series of interviews and talks with different people who are into healing and tarot reading and all those beautiful things. And I have a good friend, Eve Ford, who's with me here today, who's tarot reader for I don't know how many years, but also trained in inner child work, crystal healing, transformational healing stories, and she has very much in tune vision to how to use the tarot with mine. So I thought this would be an interesting chat. I'm not 100% sure where this chat's going to go, and I don't really care. We're going to wing it together and seeing if we can't share some interesting and different perspectives. I also thought that on my YouTube channel it's kind of boring. It's just me talking all the time. So I thought, oh my God, it would be so much more interesting having a conversation with somebody and talking a little bit maybe about some of our personal stuff as well and our healing journeys, so that we can share a little bit and hopefully inspire a little bit. So Eve, hello, thanks for joining me. And anything you want to introduce about yourself that's kind of fun and interesting or whatever?
I just want to say that my journey's come from a lot of inner healing for myself and finding different things that have worked for me. And my main purpose, I feel, is to help other people heal and continue healing myself. So if I can share with you and on here and that helps somebody, then that's amazing.
Yeah, and I'm sure it would. I've had plenty of conversations with you, and they're always interesting. They're always interesting for me, and I think that I had this idea months and months ago, and I knew I would do this type of sharing with you first of all because of our intentions and focus and use, and the way we, what we feel is our purpose in life is very much in tune, very much in harmony. And so I thought this could be like a super interesting podcast version story. So I thought, so where are we going to start? Because the healing, the healing journey is a massive one. It's kind of a broad topic with loads of different details and that we could dive into, even though there might be something a little bit more topical and more important, and I'm not 100% sure where this conversation might go. But I actually asked the tarot this morning. I said, so what's going to be a great thing to focus on as far as this journey is concerned? And hey, I've we're gonna ask the tarot these types of questions so that we can also show that this is something that's important, or like using the tarot can be used in this way, just for like conversation starter. And so a couple of cards came up, or 2 or 3 cards came up. I'm going to show them so we can just get the ball rolling and kick off a little bit of a talk about this. This is the one that came up today. So. And I'll give a tiny intro, even though that it's not worth going in deep too much. But we'll go in deep into this card as we talk. But my little version of this card is the Six of Pentacles being this karmic exchange of giving and receiving that can only take place according to like a measured law. So there's this law of vibration that says you can only receive what you feel worthy to receive. You can only give the amount that somebody else is willing to receive as well. You can't, even if you want to give more, they can't receive more. And that's the measured nature of the scales in this how much do I give to a beggar type thing. And also this beggar mentality that sits in our subconscious of lack of self-worth, of feeling like we need to ask the world and ask the universe for everything, and feeling like we're waiting for somebody to come along and give something on a plate to us. Now, this card came up as reverse, so there's probably a little bit of unconscious denial on some front, and this is the way I would look at it anyway. Unconscious denial as far as not realizing how many of our inner thoughts and programs and belief stories keep us in this kind of poor me victim mentality. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve more. I don't deserve abundance, etc., etc. What do you reckon? What do you think? What do you see about this card?
Very similar. And I think that goes into the whole story that we've all got inside of. It's those different programs we've built up since childhood, where we've got this voice inside of us that will say that things are going to be a certain way, and say, oh, is this going to be good enough? Is this going to be the right thing? Is this the right choice? How are people going to perceive me if I make this choice? So those voices that are going on, and I think that goes into the self-worth. And it's a lot of the time I think about being able to find that balance with inside yourself and pushing yourself sometimes outside that comfort zone and thinking, that's there to protect me. I'm safe. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Those voices are there trying to keep me secure. But sometimes we have to tip the scales a little bit to help improve that self-worth. You've got to find that balance. And sometimes it is in need of tipping those scales a little bit to find it.
I like that. I didn't really think about that, but yeah, the scales of balance, and if we're kind of used to receiving, hey, this amount all the time, then the idea of going, no, hang on, I'm heavier than that, I need more than that. The idea of like losing that balance. Oh, I love that metaphor actually. The idea of losing that balance is going to make us feel uncomfortable, and so it's going to require a little bit of a push to get out of that mindset that we're stuck in. And this comes back to all sorts of change that we want to create in our lives, and breaking patterns. So we're always going to have to encounter a certain amount of discomfort as we break boundaries that we've put on our own ability to receive, for example. Yeah,
we've even had conversations as well in the past in terms of like secondhand joy.
Oh, so, tell us about secondhand joy, because some people might not know what that means.
So secondhand joy is when you receive a lot more joy from doing something for someone else rather than doing it for yourself. Because we like to see people happy, we like to see people doing what they want to do, and we've been part of encouraging that or part of supporting that. It makes us feel good in return. So that secondhand joy, there's a lot more motivation behind it because you're doing it for somebody else. And it's not always easy to have that motivation for yourself when it's just solely guided by you. When it's for someone else, you're accountable, really, aren't you? So you've got that extra bit of a push.
Yeah, and we have spoken about this in the past, and
Mhm.
because we're both, I mean, I recognized this years ago inside of me that seeking, that focusing my life or focusing my work upon something that solely gives me happiness, or in a kind of a selfish happiness type of way, it just feeds me and me only.
Yes.
um it doesn't really excite me
But
as much as when I'm doing something that I can see and feel out there is creating joy in other
mhm.
people, and then I'll get that. I call it reciprocal joy, or yeah, secondhand joy is
I'm enjoying.
a great way to do, like that, where I get off on somebody else's pleasure, or I get off on somebody else's happiness. And
Yeah.
um yeah, I think in a spiritual sense, this is there's you know it looks less selfish this way, and I think I told myself that for many years, that okay, it's just selfish just to look out for yourself, and just to focus on your own joy and what makes you happy, even though I'm still doing that in a selfish type of way, because what makes me happy is what makes somebody else happy. So there is
Mhm.
always going to be a little bit of selfish motivation in those type of actions, the type of actions that make me want to serve other people, so that I can feel good, right? So that I
Yeah.
can feel good about myself. The only
Yeah.
issue there is that sometimes we get so caught up in the serving or the pleasing of other people, making somebody else happy, that will have these pre-programmed or automatic habits that we get into, that somewhere down the line might not continue to make us happy anymore,
Yeah.
or they may be counterindicative to what is actually good for us. And we
Yeah.
might be seeing the pleasure out there and getting a little bit of pleasure from that, but hey, hang on a minute, this is not that good for our own health, or good for our own, I don't know, wealth or worth or self-worth. And so
Exactly.
a little bit more selfishness is called for in that moment, but that goes against this habit. I don't know, what have been your personal experiences on this? Anything to share on that?
Um, Recently, actually, there's been a big lesson in this for me, and it's all to do with my mother passing recently.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm obviously trying to navigate my sister and my brother, and trying to, the best that I can, keep these relationships together. It's a difficult time when people are grieving. And I'm just in a place of where I'm like, it doesn't matter, as long as family's okay, as long as we're all, connected, we're all supportive of each other, and everybody feels secure and happy. I don't really mind what the outcome is of, the material side of my mum passing. I'm not interested, as long as I have my family unit. So therefore then I am trying to please my sister. I'm also trying to please my brother. And it's coming to a part where I've sort of not really thinking about what I would like from that. And then on the feminine side, when you look at it, it's I'm almost trying to mother. I'm trying to be that mother. So I'm sort of mothering everybody else, but in the process, I'm also forgetting to mother myself. And those stories then come up, and you find yourself quite depleted emotionally, energetically, because you do need to sit back and start like giving back to you. So I think in relation to this, it's me finding that balance of, okay, we all need to be happy. It's not just about my brother and my sister, it's about all of us, finding that balance. And at the minute, I'm probably not tipping those scales in the right way. So I'm accepting in me that I potentially need to step back from trying to be mother. And I maybe need to mother myself a little bit and say, look, what do I want? What do I need? So I'm having to have that selfish experience. And it doesn't always feel comfortable for us, but it is literally tipping that materialistic balance and also trying to navigate the emotional side of it. So, yeah.
I mean, but that's such a common theme, and I would say, I mean, when you're speaking there, because you're a mother 3 times over, and so being that mother, and one of the I think one of the more important experiences about becoming a parent is some of the sacrifice that we have to make a little bit, and some of the compromise, and some of the putting other people first, obviously, because when you got a child that depends 100% on you, you have to ignore some of your selfish habits, you know, that you might have got into as a singleton, as a single person, just responsible for yourself. And so in that moment that you become responsible for another being and they're completely dependent upon you, you have to put somebody else first. And there is that that beautiful act of service of being a mother or a father, but it's very much it's more commonly seen as a motherly tendency to sacrifice our own needs in order to look after somebody else. And while that is a beautiful experience, and there's a whole bunch of lessons in that parenthood dynamic, I've seen inside of myself and my partners as well, my different partners over the years, in me being a father, that it can be very it's very easy to take that to a point where you ignore yourself and you ignore your own needs, and a little bit of ignoring is okay, but then it's about finding that middle path and coming back to yourself and going, whoa, hang on a minute. I can't look after these people as well unless I'm really looking after myself, and that's going to be a secondary lesson coming from being a parent, I suppose. Yeah.
And it obviously then involves the self-worth, and I've had to sort of step back and say to myself, okay, I do have worth in this scenario, you know, so I need to then sort of allow that, and I have to be open to receiving what they want to and are able to give me in return. It isn't just about me giving. So
so there's that giving receiving dynamic here, and this, the pentacles will represent the effort, the time, the energy that we put into all sorts of things, and relationships are going to be part of that. And when you said about the self-worth story, because there is a self-worth story here. If we get into the habit of being what we call like a pleaser personality is somebody who's looking to please other people, even with the selfishness of, hey, it pleases me to please others type story. So when we get into those habits, and when that becomes a framework that our personality is built upon, then behind that it's very difficult to separate that from another inner belief that, hey, I am worth a little bit, or it's less important for me to focus on me than it is that other person or another person. And then we start telling ourselves that other person is more important to focus on for my pleasure, for my joy, for my whatever, for my well-being, than I am. And behind that is, they're more worthy than me, they're more important than me. That out there is going to be much more important than me in here. Finding or creating some sort of external emotional harmony is much more important than my internal emotional harmony. And I can ignore my internal emotional, I can dominate my internal emotional harmony, as long as everybody around me is okay, right? As long as I can create this outer dynamic. And then we get into sort of dodgy codependent tendencies and all sorts of stories.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. And I do think that's that part of where, you know, at times you do feel you have to tip it, because it points through this whole process of my mum passing. I have had to tip those scales to get everybody sort of through this situation because of my past experience within work, and being able to care for my mum. I've had to tip those scales and just sort of be giving and supportive of the people around me. And it's now that I need to recognize that I need to put those scales back to more of a balance. I don't need to drive this situation.
What does that tipping actually look like for you? I mean, what does the conscious work look like? I mean, as far as, not just talking in metaphors of scales, but what does that actually look like?
So it's sort of sitting with myself, meditating, asking, you know, what I'm feeling in my body, connecting in with my body, connecting in with the emotions that go with all of that. And then understanding those sort of core beliefs that it's sort of triggering, and working through what it means to me. And then when you're aware of that core belief, that's when you can choose actively to have a different thought process, and to choose differently, to act differently. So it gives you that opportunity to change through the meditation and through the inner work, sitting with my crystals. You know, the transformational healing process, that is, you know, a form of meditation where you go into your body and be able to work through those emotions that are stored there. And it helps bring clarity to what is actually going on underneath it all. And doing that, it's then given me the clarity to be able to go, okay, I need to take a step back here, and I need to think about me. I need to get back to practices that I do daily that maybe sometimes slip when things happen like this. And just sort of really first, before anything else, giving back to me, because that changes the energetics around me to be able to receive again in a different form. So
yeah, okay, I think this is going to be a good segue into something else. Because when you were talking there, I saw, you know, there's when there's important emotional stuff going on around the outside of us, which pretty much there always is, right? There's always, we've got family, we've got a family dynamic, then somebody somewhere, whether it's a child, a spouse, or you know, or mother, father, somewhere, somebody outside of us is going to have some sort of emotional needs, some sort of story that's going to call our attention. And it's very easy in those times, in those moments, to sacrifice what you were saying would be like a personal practice of inner communication, and taking time to really connect and ask yourself a few important questions, and just be more self-conscious, whether it's just a meditation practice or a journaling exercise or whatever. It's very easy to put those kind of what might seem on the outside as selfish, spiritual type practices to one side, and sort out the mundane stuff, which, you know, makes complete sense to our logical brain. And yet I found in my life, and I'm sure you have to a certain degree, that these outer distractions are always going to be there. They're never not going to be there. They're always going to be there. And so there's always going to be one or two or three excuses to get distracted from any type of inner work. And I've realized that at different times in my life, those distractions have become so strong that I've ignored my inner work in like year periods of my life. I've just like, and then I get into a habit of not doing that, and then it's harder to get back into a habit of doing that inner work. And the segue that I wanted to jump into was that, you know, that this is a fantastic excuse to procrastinate doing what we really need to be doing a little bit more of in our life, and that's focusing on our own inner healing. So yeah. Procrastination.
Yeah, procrastination is also an interesting one. Again, something that I've been sort of looking into recently. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw you do a post the other day on Facebook about procrastination. The card that pulled up. And there's lots of different reasons we procrastinate. And I've always been like, okay, so, you know, again, the secondhand joy, it feeds into that. It's great doing things for other people.
Yes.
So is it that sometimes I'm not motivated enough if it feels like quite selfish? But then some sort of awareness popped in the other day when I was doing some inner work. I was doing a lot of journaling. And I find I procrastinate because, to a degree, I am a perfectionist for myself. So I feel like if I don't have things in just so, I tend to put off the other things, because I feel like there has to be certain steps I need to complete before I can be there. So it's almost sometimes like I put these obstacles, but then obviously that goes deeper into some more healing. which is, again, roots it into that self-worth stuff, and not feeling good enough as you are in that moment for whatever task it is you're about to complete. Again, it feeds into the first card, and the procrastination is just sometimes because we do need to take that rest and that sort of time for ourselves. But it's finding, again, a balance of whether it's that rest that we need or that rest because we're doing it through avoidance. So
the post that I made about procrastination recently came from looking at the King of Swords that was upside down one day inside of me, and how how I wasn't really in control of what my mind was thinking about. And one of the things that I was looking at as well, is sometimes when you say to yourself, oh, I'll just check this, and then you check that, and then instead of, you've got a task that you set for yourself, and you sit down to go and do it, and you start doing it. Oh, hang on a minute. I just have a thought that pops into your head. Oh, I got to check my mail. So I check my mail. Oh, yeah. And then my mail. And then the mail gets you distracted upon this. And then that gets you distracted. Before you know it, you're looking at you're looking up something on YouTube that's really interesting, right? And then that leads you to look up something, and then you get lost. And you realize that you're in this. I saw that I was in this more receptive mode. I was just like, hearing a thought going with the flow, hearing another thought going with the flow, instead of what would be a more masculine, kingly type way of doing it, is going, no, this is what I'm going to think about, this is what I'm going to focus about, and this is what's important for me. So take all that stuff, tell yourself you can do it later, tell yourself you can do that in 10 minutes, tell yourself you can even write it down on a piece of paper so that you won't forget it if you think it's important, right? Which sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And sometimes it's just interesting.
It hooks you in.
I wanted to look that up, and you go and look something up and go, it is interesting. And then before you know it, I mean, the way that social media, whether it's YouTube or whether it's wherever it is you look up information on, there's always going to be one distraction after another and I find myself getting into a more receptive or a more passive sort of sit back and watch somebody else talk about something, instead of provoking my own mind to talk to myself or to channel stories that I need to be focused on instead.
It's that balance again, though, but of the masculine and the feminine.
Yes.
So the creative versus the action taking and doing, and
I know I'm better. I mean, I think, I don't know if this is everybody, but it seems easy to be passive and to come out of that, and it seems more challenging to come out of that passivity and be a little bit more consciously masculine, like active, and one thing that I'm working on, amongst others. I think it segues us into this card. This is another card that I drew. So I drew 2 6s today when we were speaking about when I asked what to focus on. And so get the 6 of Pentacles reversed, and we've got the 6 of Wands standing up. And so here there's this story of what I feel is a more fiery, passionate, purpose-orientated success story. And when I say purpose-orientated, I see the wands as the lightest of the elements and the highest vibration of the elements. And so it's going to be related to that finding of the light inside of us, finding the light inside the world, and then grounding that light through some type of positive action, positive work, some type of work that's heart orientated, something that's connected to our feeling, or gives us a feeling of meaning or purpose in life, and is going to be intensely creative at the same time, because the wands are super creative. But this card, I mean, the sixes always have this duality. They're very much the middle path for me, the sixes, and they sit on the Kabbalistic tree of life. The number 6 sits right in the center, and so it's the balance of above and below, and it's the balance of left and right at the same time. So the sixes have this, and they also relate to the sun. So, but they have this energy, this dualistic energy that I always see in this card as well, where a lot of people just see this card, it's a victory, it's a walk of victory and success, and high on a horse, and look what we've won the battle, blah blah blah, or whatever it is. We've won some type of inner outer conscious fight, whatever you want to talk about. But I see this wreath on here that is, yeah, it could be seen as a victor's wreath, and it very much is, but it's the highest one. And inside of battle, in this big veil on the horse that looks like a pantomime horse, if I ever saw one, even though I don't know if it's supposed to look like that. But the veil shows that, okay, this success is mounted upon something that's hidden. That there is always something gained in life, and then there's something sacrificed and lost at the same time. Because you can't really gain something without losing something in the first place. And it comes back to what you were saying about, maybe losing that balance sometimes in order to create a better level of balance or a more harmonious middle path. What do you reckon?
Yeah, definitely. I also focus in on the wreath a lot, because I see as well that has similarities to, it depends on what decks you're looking at, but there's the world card, the wheel as well. Both links into those, and it's that whole circle of coming back round, and that things do come up and they do pass, they do change. It is always change, but that change is always growth. And as long as you can, I think, find the growth in a change, that is the key, really, to being able to, I think, seeing that loss of something or letting something go, there is that sacrifice of having to let it go, but it's being able to acknowledge that there's those, and be grateful for those opportunities that are arising on this path forwards, and really being able to grasp hold of your passion is in that card for me. So holding on, and it's being able to spread that passion, because he's holding the wand, but then the other people have got the wands around them, and it's that, it's connecting. It's, for me, that card as well. So yeah, it's definitely quite a lot in that card. I always find more than just a success story. It's still a journey. It's still part of that journey. It's not a completion of success. It's still just, I think it's on the cusp of finding your way forwards, that one.
Yeah, I think appreciation is a great thing to focus on when this card comes up, because there's a feeling of being successful inside of appreciation. I mean, if you find something to feel grateful for in this world, then it's you telling the world, or telling the universe, and telling yourself at the same time, oh my God, my life is good. I feel blessed, lucky, happy. I feel worthy of putting a smile on my own face, and telling the universe thank you. And that in itself is the ability to find that, and maybe sometimes the creativity we need to get in our own life. We need to bring in our own life in order to bring in more of that, because sometimes we'll look around and we go, yeah, I could feel kind of grateful for that, yeah, I suppose, yeah, and then the but comes in, and we have to be a little bit creative in order to consciously choose that emotional state and maintain it for a minute or two, even for a minute or two, before judgmental mind jumps in and goes, yeah, but it's good, but it also comes with this, and
And it does.
It's I think that conscious choice to create a lighter perspective about what we've got going for us in our lives is super important.
Yeah,
it's very difficult to even to see, and I think that maybe that's part of the contrast of this card as well, is that you can't really, it's very difficult to be grateful for those little things in their life, like our ability to see, and our ability to walk, and our ability to do things, that we kind of take for granted, and we take for granted until something is taken away, you know. And then it's only when something is taken away that it creates this contrast that we say, oh my gosh, I need to be grateful for that. Or we're confronted with something, somebody, some aspect of the world where, those people over there are so much worse off than me. Oh my goodness, this makes me that contrast will also, you know, the tragedy that we might see, the loss that we might see, the sacrifice that we might see in the world can also be an excuse to feel grateful for what we've got. If we find it difficult to find, you know, to be creative enough to know how to feel that gratitude and that appreciation.
It's a practice, gratitude. I think it's a practice of a mindset that you've got to sort of work on. So I started off quite a few years ago trying to practice the gratitude side of things. And, you know, at first it's things like I was grateful for, you know, the sunshine in that day. And then, you know, as the days go past, you attune yourself to that vibration of gratitude. And it's almost like you can find so much more gratitude in your day once you start tuning yourself to see it. So like, it's almost like asking the universe, you know, help me be more present with this. And, you know, the universe usually provides that, and it gives you these opportunities to see the gratitude each day, and it increases. And then it sets your mindset that way inclined as well. So I'm not going to say it's always going to stay that way. You know, sometimes being grateful is a challenge for everybody, but if you do that, it does open your subconscious to be able to go, okay, I am going to acknowledge this more in the world.
Did you find that doing that practice attracted more beautiful things into your life?
Oh, definitely. 100%. It was like a gateway really for me when I started my gratitude diary. It was it just seemed to grow. Things just seemed to grow. And also I found that when something difficult did come across, it was like so much easier to navigate. Because you could go, okay, so this is happening, but so are these beautiful things as well. And it just sort of, you know, when you have say like depression, anxiety, you can spiral from one thing. A lot of people can really, it can really put people back quite a lot. But that gratitude, it does help, I suppose, soften the blow of lessons that are occurring you can't yet see the beauty in, I think. So
yeah, yeah, I mean, it's like you say, it's a practice. And Robert, yeah, it's probably one, I would say, of all the practices, it might be challenging sometimes, and at different times in life it's going to be challenging, but of all the feelings that we can invoke or provoke inside of us, everybody knows what feeling grateful feels like, you know. And it feels very similar for most people, and because we've all had one or two experiences in our life which can remind us about that emotional state of mind, I think it's maybe one of the most valid exercises, because everybody can do it. And even though it might be challenging at different times, we all know what it's like to feel grateful and to feel appreciative of something, somebody in life, and to reclaim that, or to actually consciously choose that, then becomes a discipline. It then becomes a practice, and yet the finding of that emotion and the provoking of it, I think everybody is capable of, you know. We're all going to experience love in different ways on different levels, but everybody's experienced gratitude and appreciation. And I think for the reason that it's so not easy to feel, but maybe it's one of the easier types of emotions to create at an instant. Because I can just think of 2 or 3 things anytime, always, and I'm always going to go, oh, I'm so grateful, you know. And it's always going to bring a smile to my face straight away. Those two, you know, that one person, those 2 people, that one event, that story, that you know, what's going on in my life, and in that moment, it will always bring me back. that the discipline comes, hey, how many times a day am I going to do this?
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you recommend? Well, how many times a day would you recommend just sitting and focusing on?
So I've had an interesting day, let's say, and I've had so many things to be grateful for today. I was almost starting it about lunchtime, and I was like, no, I'm going to save it till the end of the day, because I find, if for me, I did it before bed. It sets your mindset in such a beautiful place before you go to sleep. And it's full of gratitude. And if you're going to set your mind to that just before you go to sleep, it's helping the subconscious, because that's when your subconscious is going to start kicking in and creating dreams. And, you know, your subconscious is going to work through the day. If you've gone to sleep on that sort of basis of gratitude, then, you know, potentially you're going to wake up that next morning with your brain a bit more geared to that gratitude again. So, you know, I think if you're having an exceptionally difficult day, what I like to do personally is think about the first time I saw my children, you know, as soon as they were born, and that pure, absolute adoration and just, you know, true love moment where there's no love I've ever felt more intense. Just looking at their little faces for the first time. If I'm having an extremely bad day, that is my key. That is my key gratitude. I've had this experience, and it will forever pick me up whenever I need it, you know. So
even though now they're leaving the home and have gone through pissing you off 100 times, you can still find that. You can still find that. Oh, I love you.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's selective memory choices.
So I think that gratitude, if you can find a key moment in your life that you feel like that gratitude just is above everything in that point, you can help a lot to basically work through all sorts of different things. But doing gratitude before bed, like I said, I think it really helps set the mindset for the night and for the next day. So.
That's a great practice. I mean, there are so many different types of practices, but that's so easy to do. And it's, if you you know, I do that sometimes with, you know, with friends. I'll sit down and just say, you know, just choose to go back and forth about how many things I can be grateful with somebody else, so they can be a witness to you feeling grateful for many things, and you can work through any shame of self-expression as far as your own gratitude is concerned, and then to be able to listen and witness somebody else and what they're all grateful for. And that will also trigger more things that you're grateful for as you hear them, and you go, well, we don't have to copy and say, well, I'm grateful for that too, but it will remind you about many other things that you feel grateful for. And it's like, I think, you know, any type of practice that is shared between two people like that is also something that becomes a little bit more intense and makes it a little bit more powerful, which I think is great. That's one of the things about this card as well that I realized, you know, that most of, if you look in the wands, if you look in the whole suit of wands, at least in the Rider-Waite deck, there's only a few where that are seen with different people holding different wands. Now, the most obvious one is the well, actually, there's only one other card, isn't it? Yes, there's just the five. There's only the five of wands, which is kind of conflicting in nature, where other people are on the picture holding wands. Now, there's in the other cards, there's the insinuation that all these wands belong to other people, but there's no actual people in them. Like the 7, there's 6 wands below the person standing with his wand up on the high ground, and there's the 9 where there's, you know, 8 wands behind, and he's kind of looking over his shoulder and going, not too sure about it. And there's an insinuation that they belong to other people, but actually this is the only one, apart from the 5 and the 6, where there is actually other people's wands. You know, the 5 is very much we're all doing our own egotistical story with our own individual purposes and stuff. Here everybody's connected, like you said. everybody, that's what made me see that for the first time, actually. I mean, everybody in the six, everybody is actually connected. They're all walking in the same direction. They're all fighting for the same cause. They're all feeling the same victory or feeling the same win. And that's also what it reminded me of when you sit down and everybody's winning if you sit down with a group of people and do a gratitude practice, for example.
Yeah,
that might be a great thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So I do one last card as well that popped up, and it's a major card. So it's the Wheel of Fortune, and let's talk about what this means as far as so the major arcana for me will always trigger questions concerning conscious lesson or a lesson in consciousness. When I say, okay, all of the cards will talk about conscious lessons, but when I'm talking about a conscious lesson or a lesson in conscious, I refer to these cards speaking about initiation type realization, where there is a much more profound and deeper realization. And the Wheel's initiation is one that refers to a cyclical change in our life and finding these cycles that we can be more conscious of and we can learn to manipulate as we recognize where we are on any of the stages of the Wheel cycle, from hey, we're going down here and we're going up here and down here and up here, and then sitting at the top sometimes and going down here and up here, and these four elements that kind of speak a little bit about how our energy comes up and how it sits at the top and how it goes down and then how it moves and getting ready to go back up again. And talk about the Wheel. What's the Wheel for you?
I think it's very similar again. But I find as well what it is, it's that linking again to the card we've just had. It's that circle, and it's that connection, and it's figuring out the different connections that we come along. It's also, with being in the four corners, for me, it's also about finding the connections between all of those things. Because when we do find all the connection between the different aspects of where we're at, it's a lot easier to find the way to guide ourselves through and be more accepting and allowing that flow, because obviously a circle's a flow. And that flow of, okay, so things might not be great right now, but this is a process and it will come back around. And that is something quite difficult to in the moment of difficult times. It is, again, incredibly difficult to be able to remind ourselves that this isn't permanent, this is going to change, and that reminder of it's not going to be bad the whole time, it is going to come back around. So I feel like for me it's a connection of understanding your thoughts and your feelings and your materialistic world, and everything is all interconnected, and it brings it into that circle.
Okay, so I have a question for you here, like, that's very much related to this cyclical story. You know, and maybe to share something about your own personal cycle or cycles that you've been aware of in your life. If you've noticed that you're in a downward movement or a downward swing in those times when you are obviously not rising up, but definitely heading down in some way. See, I would say that the majority of that downward swing in the cycles of our lives, the majority of that downward swing is spent being unconscious of it.
Yeah.
As in, we're going down, but we're not really fully aware that we're going down. We're
Yeah.
going down, but we are taking for granted that we're going down, or we're ignoring that we're going down, or we're bypassing that story that we're going down.
Yeah.
We're heading down, but we've got into the habit of thinking this is normal and there's no power that we have to change it, so we just got to accept it. We're going down because, and there's no conscious intervention that says, hey, I'm going down and I was higher than this before, because in that moment that we become conscious of it, then for me, this is this transition here between earth, if this is the cyclic story, we're going down toward a more earthly, heavy, materially focused attention, but then in that from that materially focused attention we bring a little bit of light in, or a little bit of fire, a little bit of desire for transformation, for healing, a little bit of creativity comes in, and we start to shine a little bit of light, and we become aware, these two conscious, the earth and fire dynamic, where we become a little bit of aware of how low we actually are or going, and then the consciousness can make a movement from that. In your own experience, I don't know, I'm waffling a little bit here, but in your own experience, what do how can you create a transition, or how can you create more self-awareness, or like, I'm going down? Because I think that half of the key to making a change, or making this cycle change from going down to coming up, is simple awareness of it, and the awareness that we can, and we have the power to choose something differently. How has that looked for you, that journey of awareness, or creating more consciousness? Is there anything that you did, that you've done, that you can see works for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the first thing is when you're beginning to start to do it inner work and become more aware of, your emotional state. It's learning. In meditation, such a massive thing for me, is that you can actually just stop and be present with yourself, and you can start to just sort of allow these thoughts just to pass by. It's not about getting rid of all of them straight away, it's about just that awareness, just sitting with it. And then also that minute to just stop and feel into your body. And I think if you make a regular practice of doing that, you tend to sort of notice that you're more irritable, or notice that, sitting down and meditating is not so easy, or, there's little things over time that I've learned within myself. Okay, so I'm not finding it very easy to meditate right now. My mind is 100 miles an hour, or I'm very fidgety, I'm quite restless. They're all signs for me that I'm, there's something going on internally, my mind, my body, because they're all connected. And, it's firstly starting to do little practices of just sitting with yourself. Don't get me wrong, I'm still, at points where you have to, for self-preservation at points of the materialistic world, you have to keep going, even though you're starting to go on a bit of a downward spiral. I think, like I said, the more practices you put in place, and also if you journal, just get out and brain dump what it is that's going on in your life, that I think can be really, really informative, because you can see where you're at. If you journal and you read it back, I find you can sort of assess it in a third party and see where you're at. And I love doing this, because you can go, wow, okay, reading that back to myself is interesting. I can see where I'm coming from this, or I'm coming from there. You can see that when you journal. So I think over the years, these bits that I've sort of put in for myself, I now recognize when I am going down. And again, I start ramping up the gratitude. But for me, one of the biggest things is when I start feeling like that, is I'll reach out. And often the reaction for most people is to withdraw, because they don't feel good about themselves. They feel low. It's to retreat into their own space and hide away. When in actual fact, in those moments, we need to connect. and it's all part of the healing. And there's the snake on the side of the wheel, and that is always to do with a lot of healing as well, because the medicinal wand is the two snakes wrapped, isn't it? For the healing and what have you. And I always find that connecting and those joining into a circle of people is a way to then help you acknowledge, feel supported and held in that safe space to bring it back up. Whereas often we really, really just want to retreat and hide away and, you know, jump in bed and cry sometimes.
That's so true. I mean, me being what I would class as a false man for many years in my life, and I'm calling myself a false man because, you know, with this indoctrinated idea that men shouldn't ask for help type story, and it's not manly, and it's a sign of weakness, and you should be able to figure shit out on your own, boy, come on, you know, and this mentality that you know, that I can do it all on my own type dynamic has, and that's, you know, that simple stubbornness and maybe fixed-minded conditioning to believe that that's a truth has been a big downfall for me. And, you know, and you'll be witness, as I will, that in this world of healing, and even in the tarot and using the tarot as we like to for personal development, in this world of personal growth and development, and I've you know, worked in a spiritual center with you know, teaching meditation for many years as well. It's dominated by feminine dynamics, you know, because maybe that there's this natural ability to connect and be more vulnerable and be more open more, and this willingness to ask for help, like you said, that's been maybe a huge downfall of mine over the years, is to not ask for help and to feel the shame if you have to, right? To feel the shame of having to ask for help, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's very much a social construct that we've created in our society, especially for us men, and it makes us false men. And I've become I've stagnated into becoming much worse versions of myself because of that idea in its simplest form. You know, just if I were to, you know, have the courage or the just the simple bravery to break out of those ideas and ask for help and say, hey, I'm not doing very well, and I don't seem to be doing a great job at bringing myself out of this. Even just the ability to admit that to yourself and then admit that to somebody else, you know, overcomes a huge amount of shame, which is a mask that we place upon our own eyes and blocks us from being able to be more honest with ourselves. And feeling the willingness to open up and share on that level is so fundamentally important, and it's probably the fastest way to create any transformational change, because the moment you've admitted something to somebody else, then you can't hide it from yourself anymore. This is why you've already stopped hiding it from yourself, and then if you stop hiding it from yourself, you're already in a process of self-awareness instead of self-denial.
Yeah, definitely.
And whatever path, whatever your personal pathway looks like to bringing you up after you have become self-aware of how low you actually are in your own personal vibration. I think that's going to vary from one person to the next, but I think it definitely always starts with awareness.
Definitely does.
Yeah, and self-awareness.
Okay.
So me and you can talk for hours about so many different things, Eve, and I know that this is going to be maybe one of a series of talks that we have together, and it's great that we can, you know, use the tarot as prompts for a conversation about inner healing and inner stories. And I know that you work very, very similar to I do with clients and with coaching, and and doing readings for people with the purpose of helping people create personal transformation and changes in their lives, and changing of our own perspective at the same time, as well as understanding that you are very much on the personal journey of doing the same, as well as I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, for anybody listening here, I'm going to leave some links to ways that you can connect with Eve as well, if you're interested to do any work with her in the future, because I think it's, if you've connected with anything that she says, and in this or any future exchanges that we might have, then I wholly support you do that work as well, because that work is going to be that which provides a beautiful foundation and support for any personal transformation we want to make. That's why we're here anyway. I know that's why we're here, and that's why we want to share. Is there anything that you've got going on in your life now that you think is like super important, as far as, I don't know, something topical, something interesting that's coming up for you that you'd like to share before we maybe sign off?
At the minute, my life is in a complete state of change. Every aspect of my life, I've moved house, my family dynamics have changed, my work is changing, everything. And that can be really difficult at times for a lot of people. So for me, at the moment, with that great amount of change, I'd say I just probably leave it on the note of that change isn't always easy, but the end result is often what you choose it to be and what you want it to be. And if you focus on roughly where you're going and how you want to feel and where you want to be, you keep striving towards that. That's the way to focus through the change. Keep doing the inner work and things. So yeah, the amount of things that's happening right now. Exciting stuff, sad stuff. It's all sort of crashing into one at the moment. In my little world. But it's beautiful, and it's all just happening for a reason.
Yeah. Oh, it's all happening for a reason. Well, let's not segue onto something else. But yeah, well, I'm super grateful that you joined me anyway, just to create a little bit of a conversation around the cards, which I think it makes them 10 times more interesting. And just riffing off somebody else and having a back and forth between the two of us is more interesting than me, than just looking at the camera and going, hello, potential viewers of whatever I have to say. Because at least I'm here speaking to some real person that I'm watching. But yeah, so basically, thank you for joining me anyway, making the time in what is, I know, a schedule of busyness in your life right now. And I hope that this inspires you in some way, or at least can help both of us manifest more of what we feel is our purpose or mission in life, to bring some positive messages to the world. So, but yeah, you just said one thing there that I'm not going to let escape exactly before we go. So yeah, I mean, you're going through many changes, and changes can really be challenging to our consciousness, in that when lots going on, it's even more of a distraction. There's more reasons to procrastinate. There's more reasons to ignore personal practice. There's more reasons to bring our focus away from our inner conversations that we might be having with ourselves, and focus just on the world on the outside that's so desperately calling for our attention in 1,000 different ways. In that moment, in that moment, you said something just now, which was like that all these changes are both great and bad, not bad. I'm not going to judge them as good and bad, but let's say the challenging changes, as well as the, amazingly inspiring changes that come hand in hand sometimes, or our life fluctuates between one and the other. When the challenges come up, is there anything that you have practiced that help you remember that, hey, this is all part of the bigger purpose, my biggest story, my biggest, the bigger reason I'm going to be here, even that feels freaking uncomfortable and I don't like it in so many ways. It's all important. And is there any way that you've found yourself that you can help yourself come back to that belief that this is important, this is necessary, this is good, let's not fight. You don't have to fight against these experiences.
Definitely. I like to repeat to myself, this is happening for me and not to me. So it's finding the reason for, for me, for my growth, for me to be able to find what, I can learn and experience and take away from these changes that is going to give me wisdom to move forward in life and potentially share even. So, yeah, that's
an important thing.
It's happening for me, not to me, is a key thing in these moments.
Yeah, I've definitely not had the ability to remember that one statement in times of my darkness and when the tower's falling down around me in my life. But with the hindsight that I have now, I'm so grateful for those more deeper, darker experiences in that the coming out of them, the realization of a sense of self-denial that has created them in the first place has helped me understand so much more about how we work and how and what we attract in both dark and light stories in this world. That it's definitely helped me become a much more conscious and better coach and help a much wider variety or amplitude of audience as far as working personally with people's story, and giving me 10 times more compassion for everybody else's dark story. There's zero judgment in my head anymore. Well, I say zero, there's always a bit, right? But there's a lot less. There's a lot less. It's very difficult to trigger that judgment anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Eve, thank you very much for joining me, and I can even say us if there's more than me just listening. And let's do this again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Great, and here we sign off.